Here's the funny thing about divine intervention. It doesn't always come with lightning bolts and thunder. Sometimes, it's as simple as toxic people mysteriously falling out of your life, one by one, like dominoes in slow motion. You see, when someone repeatedly takes advantage of your kindness, your trust, your willingness to forgive, they're not just hurting you. They're playing a dangerous game with forces they don't understand. Every time they manipulated you, every time they drained your energy, every time they took more than they gave, they were actually signing their own exit papers from your life. The universe has a peculiar way of taking out its trash. The beautiful irony of their removal is that they never saw it coming. These people, so clever in their manipulation, so skilled at taking advantage of others, never realized they were actually digging their own graves in your life. Each lie they told, each promise they broke, each time they used your goodness against you. They thought they were building their power over you. But in reality, they were building the very reasons why they needed to be removed. It's like watching a thief proudly collect evidence of their own crimes, thinking they're gathering treasures. Let's talk about the perfect timing of their removal. Notice how they disappeared exactly when you had learned what you needed to learn from them. That's not coincidence. That's divine choreography. Each person who took advantage of you was unknowingly serving as a teacher, showing you exactly what you needed to stop accepting in your life. They thought they were clever, thought they had you figured out, but they were actually just temporary characters in your story, meant to strengthen you through their toxicity. Once their role in your development was complete, they were simply removed. The process of their removal reveals a deeper truth about personal growth. Each time someone who took advantage of you was removed from your life, you gained something they could never take away: wisdom. While they were busy calculating how to use you, how to drain you, how to manipulate your generous nature, they were actually helping you develop an immunity to people like them. Think of it like a vaccination. Each toxic person who entered and was removed from your life made you stronger, more resilient, more capable of spotting others of their kind. Consider why these people were allowed to enter your life in the first place. Every manipulator who took advantage of you was actually delivering lessons you needed to learn. Each betrayal taught you discernment. Each manipulation showed you the importance of boundaries. Each time they took more than they gave, they were teaching you the value of what you had to give. They thought they were depleting you, but they were actually helping you discover your own worth. Their removal wasn't just about getting rid of toxic people. It was about you finally graduating from the lessons they were meant to teach. Watch how they try to return after their removal. That's when the divine comedy really shows itself. These people, so used to taking advantage of your good nature, suddenly find themselves unable to reach you. It's like watching someone repeatedly walk into a glass door, unable to comprehend why their old access has been revoked. They'll try their usual tactics, the guilt trips, the manipulative messages, the fake apologies, but something's different now. The very energy that once let them into your life now keeps them out. Divine removal isn't just about physical distance, it's about energetic incompatibility. The aftermath of their removal brings another fascinating revelation. Their absence creates space for what you actually deserve. All the energy they were draining, all the time they were wasting, all the emotions they were manipulating. Suddenly, it's all available for better things, better people, better opportunities. It's like watching a garden flourish after removing the weeds that were stealing all the nutrients. The same divine force that removed them is now bringing in people who know how to respect your worth, who understand the value of what you have to give. Pay attention to how your life transforms after their removal. The clarity that comes when manipulative people are gone is like finally being able to breathe clean air after living in smoke. You start to see how much energy they were actually draining, how their presence was blocking better things from entering your life. Their removal isn't just about getting rid of toxic people. It's about making space for your true purpose, your real connections, your actual path in life. They had to go because they were standing in the way of what you were meant to become. The most delicious part of divine removal is watching karma unfold in their lives afterward. These people, so skilled at taking advantage of others, suddenly find themselves in situations where their old tactics don't work anymore. It's like watching a con artist trying to pull off their scams in a room full of psychics. Their true nature is exposed. Their manipulations become transparent. Their power dissolves. Not because you wished bad things for them, but because the same divine justice that removed them from your life is now showing them exactly why they were removed. You know what's funny about plans? They're usually built around the wrong people. You crafted this perfect little future, didn't you? Had it all mapped out, who would be there, what roles they'd play, how everything would unfold. But those plans were made when you were still under their influence, still believing their lies, still trying to build a life around people who were secretly dismantling yours. When God removes these toxic players from your game, suddenly, your whole strategy needs to change. And that's not a tragedy. It's an opportunity they never wanted you to see. The most fascinating part about losing your original plans is realizing they were never really yours to begin with. Think about it. How many of those goals were actually shaped by their manipulation? How many of those dreams were twisted to include people who were only there to take advantage of you? It's like looking at a blueprint and finally noticing that someone else had been sneakily redrawing parts of it, making sure their parasitic presence was essential to the whole design. Now that they're gone, you can finally see the alterations they made to your life's architecture. Life has this beautiful way of clearing your path by first making it impossible to walk the one you're on. Every toxic person who gets removed takes with them the parts of your plan they contaminated. Sure, it feels like your future is falling apart, but look closer. It's not destruction, it's demolition. The universe is literally tearing down the compromised structures of your life, the ones that were built on foundations of manipulation and false loyalty. Your old plans dissolving isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of one they can't corrupt. Here's what makes this whole process so perfectly designed. The very people who took advantage of you were unknowingly blocking your real path. All those plans you made, trying to accommodate their demands, trying to build a future around their needs, they were actually detours from where you were meant to go. Think of it like this. You were trying to build a house while parasites were eating away at the support beams. Their removal might leave holes in your plans, but those holes become windows to possibilities you couldn't see before. Notice how much lighter everything feels when you stop trying to force your old plans to work. These people who took advantage of you, they made themselves seem essential to your future, didn't they? Made you believe that your plans couldn't succeed without them. But now that they're gone, you can finally feel the weight they were adding to every step forward. It's like trying to run a race with anchors tied to your legs, then finally realizing you can cut them loose. Your new path isn't just different, it's unburdened by their dead weight. The real freedom comes when you understand that your old plans were actually a cage designed by those who wanted to keep you contained. They helped you build this elaborate maze of goals and dreams. But look at the pattern. Every path led back to them. Every future scenario required their presence. Now that they're removed, you can finally see the bigger picture. It's not about finding a new way through their maze. It's about realizing you can step over the walls entirely and walk in any direction you choose. The transformation of your plans reveals a truth they never wanted you to discover. The future they helped you design was actually designed to help them. Every goal that now seems impossible without them was probably a goal that only served their interests. Think about it. How many of your plans were actually compromises? How many of your dreams were dimmed to keep them comfortable? How many of your ambitions were anchored to their limitations? Their removal isn't derailing your life. It's liberating it from tracks that were leading nowhere. Watching your old plans dissolve can be the most enlightening part of this whole process. Each impossible goal, each broken timeline, each derailed plan shows you exactly how they had infected your vision of the future. It's like finally turning on the lights and seeing all the subtle ways they had redecorated your dreams to suit their needs. But here's the beautiful part. As those contaminated plans fall away, they reveal foundations for something much more authentic, something they couldn't have planned for or manipulated. The universe has this perfect way of showing you why your old plans needed to die. Every time you try to cling to that contaminated future, something comes along to show you why it wouldn't have worked anyway. It's like watching a building demolition in slow motion. Each support beam that falls reveals how unstable the whole structure was. These aren't obstacles to your success. They're revelations about why that path was never meant for you. Your real future required their removal, which means it required the death of any plan that depended on their presence. Let's talk about why these people who took advantage of you were so desperate to dim your light. See, when someone has given up on themselves, they develop this fascinating need to make others give up too. It's like a drowning person trying to drag others down with them. Not because they want company, but because your ability to swim reminds them of their own failure to try. They saw your potential, your drive, your refusal to settle, and it reminded them of everything they'd stopped believing in for themselves. That's why God removed them, because their self-defeat was becoming contagious. The most dangerous thing about people who've given up isn't their failure. It's their dedication to making failure look normal. Think about how they operated. Every time you shared a dream, they had a reason why it wouldn't work. Every time you made progress, they had a story about someone who tried the same thing and failed. Every time you showed resilience, they called it denial. They weren't just expressing doubt. They were selling you their own surrendered worldview, trying to make you invest in the same limitations they'd accepted for themselves. Watch how these self-defeated people disguise their sabotage as concern. "I just don't want you to get hurt," they'd say. "I'm trying to protect you from disappointment. I'm just being realistic." But here's what they never tell you. They're not protecting you from the world. They're protecting themselves from having to witness someone succeed where they gave up. Every time you pushed forward despite their warnings, Every time you believed, despite their doubt, you were forcing them to confront their own abandoned potential. The genius of divine removal is how it exposes the true nature of their influence. Once they're gone, you start noticing how many of your doubts were actually echoes of their voice. Those moments of hesitation, those weren't your natural caution. They were the residue of their projected limitations. The fears that held you back, they weren't your authentic concerns. They were borrowed anxieties from someone who'd stopped believing in anything bigger than their own defeat. Their removal lets you finally distinguish between your real voice and their implanted doubts. Pay attention to how your confidence changes now that these dream killers are gone. It's like finally being able to stand up straight after carrying someone who refused to walk on their own. These people who gave up on themselves become emotional parasites, feeding off the energy of those who still dare to try. They didn't just take advantage of your kindness. They took advantage of your hope, your ambition, your refusal to settle. Their removal is like a weight being lifted. Suddenly you can move faster, reach higher, dream bigger, without their dead weight of doubt dragging you down. Look at the tactics they used to transfer their defeat to you. First, they'd validate your struggles. Finally, someone who understands. Then, they'd introduce their poison. Subtle suggestions that maybe the odds really are too high. Maybe the dream really is too big. Maybe settling isn't so bad after all. They were like architects of defeat, carefully constructing justifications for giving up, making surrender seem wise instead of weak. But their removal shows what they really were. Not wise mentors, but false prophets of failure. The most insidious part of their influence was how they tried to make mediocrity look mature. They painted your ambition as naivety, your persistence as foolishness, your hope as childish. You'll understand when you're older, they'd say, as if giving up was some kind of wisdom that comes with age. But look at them now, removed from your life by divine intervention, because their version of growing up was just growing bitter. Their realism was just repackaged resignation. Here's what makes their removal so perfectly timed. It happens right when you're strong enough to reject their defeated mindset, but not yet strong enough to resist absorbing it. These people are like emotional vampires. They don't just want your energy, they want your belief system. They want you to look at life through their cracked lens, to see limitations where you once saw possibilities. God removes them before their perspective becomes your perspective, before their surrender becomes your surrender, before their giving up becomes your giving up. The beautiful irony of their removal is how it reveals the power of the very persistence they mocked. While they were busy telling you why things wouldn't work, why dreams don't come true, why giving up is smart, the universe was busy proving them wrong by removing them from your story. Every step forward you take now is a contradiction of their defeated philosophy. Your very success after their departure becomes evidence of why they needed to go, because you were never meant to inherit their surrender. Here's the thing about your worth. It was never something they could give you or take away. But they sure made you believe they could, didn't they? These people who took advantage of you, they became like drug dealers of validation, carefully controlling the doses of approval they gave you. One day, they'd lift you up. The next, they'd drop you down, keeping you addicted to their opinion of your value. That's why God removed them, because you were starting to believe their pricing of your worth. forgetting that you were priceless all along. The game of seeking approval is rigged from the start. Think about how these people operated. They'd make you jump through hoops, dance to their tune, twist yourself into shapes that weren't natural to you. All for what? A nod of approval? A word of praise? A moment of validation that they'd snatch away as soon as you started feeling secure? They turned your need for acceptance into a weapon against you, making you work harder and harder for smaller and smaller doses of their approval, like a rigged carnival game where the prizes keep shrinking. Look at what happens when you finally stop asking others to tell you what you're worth. It's like walking out of a dark room where everyone was trying to describe your reflection to you, and stepping into sunlight where you can finally see yourself clearly. These manipulators, they thrived on your habit of looking to them for confirmation of your value. Every time you asked, "Am I good enough?" they heard, "Please control me." Every time you sought their approval, you gave them another piece of your power. Their removal is forcing you to look at yourself through your own eyes instead of theirs. The psychology of self-worth reveals something these people never wanted you to understand. Validation seeking is just another form of self-abandonment. While you were collecting their opinions like precious coins, trying to save up enough external approval to finally feel worthy, you were actually spending your own inner wealth. They saw this spiritual bankruptcy in action, watched you give away your power piece by piece, trading your authentic self-worth for their counterfeit approval. God removed them because you were going broke, trying to buy what you already owned. Watching how your worth grows when you stop renting it from others is the perfect revenge against those who tried to lease it to you. These approval merchants, they had you convinced that your value was something that needed constant external verification, like a subscription service you had to keep renewing. But now that they're gone, you're discovering something they never wanted you to know. Your worth is like breathing, natural and automatic, not something you need to earn or prove or maintain through others' recognition. The most liberating realization comes when you understand why they needed you to depend on their validation. These people who took advantage of you, they weren't just controlling your sense of worth, they were borrowing it. Every time they made you seek their approval, they were actually feeding off your power, using your need for validation to fill their own empty spaces. It's like they were emotional vampires, but instead of blood, they fed on your belief in their authority to define your value. Pay attention to how different life feels when you stop auditioning for other people's approval. All that energy you used to spend trying to prove your worth, it's now available for actually living your worth. These manipulators had you so busy trying to earn value that you forgot value isn't earned, it's inherent. Like gravity or sunlight, your worth exists, whether others acknowledge it or not. Their removal is like taking off a blindfold you didn't know you were wearing, letting you finally see what was visible to everyone except you. The transformation of your self-image after their removal reveals the magnitude of their deception. These people had convinced you that worth was something external, something that needed constant verification from others, like a document that always needed new signatures to stay valid. But now you're discovering that real self-worth is more like your DNA, unique to you, permanently encoded in your being, not something that needs constant external validation.